Hi, this is No Gaming Scientist. Connor's eating pound cake.
Hello.
Um, we're gonna talk about games today, but first, the news: Suicide Squad may be delayed again, which, honestly, surprising move. I don't know if they did they say when they're gonna delay it too, or is it
I don't
just like a
remember.
rumor.
I don't remember. I do think
It's
it
like a
was.
heavily
I don't know.
backed rumor.
I don't know if it's a rumor or if they just said they were going to put more time into it because that's what I heard, but I don't remember seeing a date.
Okay. By the way, if this sounds different, it's because we're in the same room today. So
What? Less delay at least.
less delay. Um, yeah, it was shown full force 2 weeks ago. Two?
Something like that.
Everyone hated it. I hated it. I got very sad,
Uh,
and because the Arkham games, but the Arkham trilogy that Rocksteady made are some of the most beloved games. Not only games in general, but like superhero games. And to see that studio turn into basically what is like low-key superhero anthem from the amount they were flying around and stuff makes me sad, and I don't know why they thought that was a move. Well, I know who thought it was a move. It was the suits, but
yeah, I mean, I think I was less bothered by the overall movement than just like the idea that it's going to be a much more aggressive, like looter shooter type situation with the high likelihood of live service
oh no, they
stuff.
confirmed that like straight up live
Okay.
service battle pass like whole shebang.
Yeah. So, which is the? Oh God, I feel like it was. There we go.
It's live.
it's live. So no, it's just like the. Obviously, it feels like one of those like traps just get you to spend a bunch of money, which yes, it's a decision made from a boardroom, and generally speaking, but with these bigger games that they do put so much development time and cost into, they do have a lot of trouble figuring out how are they going to sometimes like return some of that money and then make a bunch of money on top of it. And so when they have successful models that are able to do that properly, everyone else wants to do it because they think like, why if they can do it, why can't we? But it's like I don't think they realize that like the reason that Fortnite is successful doing something like that is because people like to play Fortnite. Fundamentally, I don't, but people do. The reason that Destiny is able to do things like that is that people like to play Destiny, and so you're gonna have to like actually put like a good game in there, and then put additional things on top of it,
Yeah, and not only
not
that,
ham fisted in, and then
make it make sense. Make it fit. If this was because the issue I have is it doesn't fit the IP that they're trying
yeah,
to use it for. Like, I'm no
yeah,
DC connoisseur or that knowledgeable, but I know enough that Harley Quinn mostly uses melee weapons and occasionally a gun or something. But for the most part, she
yeah,
likes to beat shit up. Acrobatics wise, I'm not as like weird about because like she is very acrobatic, athletic, etc. But the fact that they're trying to say like, oh yeah, she uses Uzis all the time. I'm like, no, no, she doesn't. And I think a lot of people with any surface level understanding of these characters will say like, this doesn't fit. Why?
yeah. Yeah, there may have been some flexibility in some of the more recent interpretations in comics, but I don't read the comics enough to know.
Yeah.
What's odd is like it's kind of the particular characters. They have other characters that I think a live service style game within the DC comics space would have worked pretty well. Justice League, Teen Titans, either of those would have been had the possibility for something like this that I think can be done right if with the right care. So anyway, that's Suicide Squad. I mean, I'm still interested in trying it out at some point if it's like not too aggressively uh, pay to win or
I don't think it's pay to win.
okay,
I will.
yeah.
I
If
think
it's
it'll be paid to play better.
yeah, if it's primarily PVE like co-op with against environment stuff, like it might still be fun. If they try too hard to make it like exactly into Destiny or too much of a competitive type situation, it's probably not going to be something I get too into. Um, Rocksteady still knows how to like do movement, so they might still do something interesting with it. But overall, it just seems like,
I mean, I straight up hope it bombs, but that's just me. Like,
I mean, I want to not encourage the behavior, but like I don't think that I'm actually a little bit unsure that we're gonna like easily like we're gonna still get like big story games, but you're gonna constantly have the impulse of like needing to make a bunch of money back.
yeah, and again, I think it just needs more thought put into it, more respect. You can have a games as a service version of you know a superhero like property. Been done before. I can't remember the name, but there used to be like a DC MMO. I can't remember the name of it right now, but there was one and it did okay. But
I think it might have even been just like DC Online or something.
yeah,
like that,
it
but
was probably something like simple as DC Online. But the point being is like
Yeah.
you can do it. I don't mind it. It's just there was not enough thought put into like okay, Killer Croc. Again, I'm not that familiar with these characters, but I can piece together that guy's supposed to be a brawler, not running around with a Gatling gun. And the video they did put out, like their shoot, it's not compelling. It's just dumb, repetitive. Shoot this glowy purple thing, and that was
Yeah.
really the only thing that was guiding your gameplay decision making was shoot the glowy thing, do things to shoot the glowy thing even more. Right? It's maybe there's more to the game and we just don't know yet. But it was
Yeah, I mean,
not a good
uh,
first showing.
any yeah. Bottom line, they didn't present it correctly, regardless, because it's possible that it wasn't well presented, but what they did present was not something people liked. So here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Speaking of delays, Starfield's delayed.
yeah, so
Again.
I'm okay with it.
It's probably for the
ultimately.
better. It's probably for the better.
I mean, it's one of those things. I have plenty of games to keep me occupied until it comes out, and I'd prefer that it's at. I'm fully confident this game's going to release with some of the weirdest bugs we've seen in any game. I'm also confident that their claims are going to be way less delivered than they think they are. However, it is going to be a canvas that can be built upon by modding communities, and so it will very, very soon be like once it releases it, you'll have a modding community for it within like 6 months or so, if not sooner. And so it's
Within days, Connor. I expect within days.
sure you might have people who have access to the SDKs even before release. So like SDK, I don't know if that's the right word. Start. But the thing is, they're making a lot of promises, and I think they did a certain amount of procedural generation on certain parts of it, which is like often makes me nervous because they're saying we have all these planets. Many of them are procedurally generated, and I'm like, well, that just sounds like that sounds like the same corridors of the Capital Wasteland again. So potentially. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it's one of those things where I think this kind of game, this kind of space exploration, Star Trek and Star Wars simulator thing has been a big part of a lot of people's like
Wish list
for years, and it will probably still be fun. Like it's Bethesda, and it's going to have enough things to critique about it, but it is going to be a game that is enjoyable to play, most likely.
I mean, yeah. The worst I will say about it is it's a good podcast game. I think is the worst thing I'll say about it. It'll be fun. I think they started to nail down shooting and all that, like stuff that was awkward in the Fallout 3 in New Vegas.
Yeah.
Like Fallout 4 felt great to play, but was a letdown in other regards into like the role playing aspects of it.
Yeah, and the story. The story is not good, and that's one thing. They if I could say anything about Bethesda, it's like they really need to work on their writing staff because they seem to be stuck in a rut.
Mm-hmm.
In both of their iterations, they have written basically the same story for all intents and purposes. So
Effectively, yeah, just reverse the
yeah,
roles.
and Fallout 3 was basically the same story as one of the original titles. I think even the first one, you're basically just you're getting a GEC unit and you're saving the wasteland or whatever, and it's like, okay, this is the same story, which was probably a nod, but like as someone who's like wants something interesting.
You want to take bets on if it's a ancient advanced civilization story?
Oh man, it probably that's certainly going to be a subplot.
No, but I'm saying that's going to be the main plot.
Oh,
Mass Effect
yeah,
style, Protheans.
there's probably a more than 50-50 chance
Okay.
that will be.
So that's my bet.
In
Is
there.
that that's going to be the plot?
I mean, it's either going to be that or like I can't even think of another trope. It's like another specific trope.
Space colonizers.
First contact type situation.
Yeah. Okay. So that's our bets. You heard it here first.
This isn't. So just to move on a little bit, this isn't gaming news, but it might affect the gaming industry in some capacity. But only 2 days ago, I think it's the second largest bank in the United States failed. Basically because all of the venture capitalists had their money in there, took their money out based on the failure of certain mortgage-backed securities or something like that. I don't know the whole story. But basically, they started taking their money out, which led to the people who rely on those funds being in the bank as startups being unable to withdraw money. And I think I've been seeing reports of companies already not being able to make payroll because of this.
Big yikes.
Yeah, and these don't necessarily include game companies, but this includes, like, my familiarity was companies like Zendesk and Lucid, I think is actually the company name, were affected by this, and there's a bunch of others. But the reality is when things like this happen, they can become domino effects, and people with a lot of money can decide to start pulling money out, and when they start pulling their money out, it starts to be a little bit unsure at what point it makes sense for you to pull your money out if you're banking with a larger bank. Because if you wait, you may not be able to get it. Now, if you're a small time, if you're just like our average person, your money's probably insured, so it wouldn't be anything to worry about too much. But it can create knock-on effects for larger companies that rely on those deposits for payroll and things like that. So I do think it's worth like considering that it could affect things like smaller game studios and even potentially the medium to larger game studios. It's very likely to, if it were to continue moving, cause further consolidation. Because if smaller companies can't make payroll, larger companies will consume them and basically guarantee their payroll and guarantee a certain number of jobs, although it would probably also include layoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the world right now. First game that we're going to talk about, and I'm hoping this macro works, is Sons of the Forest.
Boy, it worked perfectly.
It worked perfectly. I'm excited about it. This is a sequel to The Forest, which I dabbled in, but then got scared of and never played again. Survival horror, crafting, open world ish. I don't know if I would call it that.
I think I'd call it open world.
You would call it? Yeah.
It's not a huge world, but it is. You have different places on the map you can get to and areas you can enter, and yeah,
I guess because the caves are like dungeons essentially.
Yeah, it's very similar format to something like Valheim.
So Connor and I would argue, correct me if I'm wrong, big fans of the like survival crafting genre. Valheim, Grounded. I dabbled the Raft. We dabbled in. So I would say we're fans.
In fact, we have older recordings of the Raft. If we never completed it or went back to it when it fully
We
released.
shouldn't.
But
We should though, because it's like fully released now. Because it was still in
yeah,
early access.
yeah,
when
we were still in early access, and there's a lot
We
of
should do a new one.
there was a lot of
There's-
jank in it when we were playing.
we should
it.
do New Island. Anyways,
I think there's still a lot of jank, but it's
that's the
more-
beauty
it's
of
more
some of these
released.
games, though.
No, I do like these games. I do think some of them can get stale because they don't know how to like do something a little more interesting. I think, and you can say how you feel about this one. I think like this game, with some of the survival horror elements that aren't like, they're a little rough, but like for me sometimes, but like not in, they're not like, what's one of the big ones, like Outlast. It's not trying to like terrify me.
Yeah, you're not you're not helpless. You can fight back. So that and for me, horror games, I do not care for the ones where I am completely helpless. And if you like them, that's for you. That's great. For me, I do like the ability to defend myself, to fight back. Except like I like the horror from the danger being there, but not a danger I cannot fight against.
Yeah. I think this game has, and I'm actually even watching the trailer we have going right now, that the little cabin with these lookout posts on either side of the door is really neat. The building mechanics, I think, are part of what also sets it apart, because most of these
It's
games,
very
like,
intuitive.
most of these games deal with like, you have like either you just place down blueprints and then you have to fill them in, or you have like you instantly place walls and things with resources and stuff like that. But quite often the ability to place them the way you want is really restrictive, and I don't think what Sons of the Forest is doing is nearly as fluid and forgiving as something like Valheim, but it is more.
I feel like Valheim is more strict because it actually takes into account weight and stuff of the.
No. I mean, it
structures.
does for that. It does have the weight with the building heights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you have a lot more angles, and you're not.
I see.
You're not like. There are restrictions in this game about like where you can place it. And
Yeah,
like, and
yeah, that's fair. That's
whether
fair.
you can connect it to
Mm-hmm.
a particular piece or not. And Valheim's like far more forgiving about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does have a support system. In
Yeah,
that game.
but I do like how intuitive it is. Like I can put a log up, put one diagonally, and then I can look at the corner, and the game knows. And this is what makes sense to me, that I can just lift that end that was diagonally on the ground up and just put another log under there. And then, I can do struts at corners of long bridges and not need those middle supports, or not as many middle supports, as long as I put enough struts. Like, or, if it's a weird different heights of the ground, like one of our bases was like, part of it was lower on the ground because there was like a pond we were building over, and the game knew or understood that I wanted to use one full log and then like a half log to make up for that height difference, and the game understood what I wanted to do. It took me a while to figure it out, but afterwards I knew what to do for the rest of the structure, and that's like honestly really cool from like a building perspective. Like, if you can think it's probably gonna work. It might be janky, it might take a little bit, but like it's probably gonna work.
Yeah, there's a lot of freedom for that, and then one thing that the only other game I've seen them do something like this is there's only one other game I've seen them do it, but with the companion character you have for all of his faults, Kelvin,
best boy,
gets you around some of the like solo and almost like helplessness characteristic of a lot of these survival games.
Yeah, like he can't fight, he can't do anything, but he
No.
is present. He will get you resources you need.
Yeah.
The internet is ablaze with him right now.
Yeah. They apparently fixed some of his worst problems, like knocking down your tree structures.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to read the patch notes. Outside of building, I think the crafting's kind of cool. The way it's set up, at least, is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, it's early access, so they're continuing to add a bunch of stuff. Because I think one thing I will say is it is kind of lacking on a variety of different weapons and a variety of different things and weapons you can craft. Because I you pretty quickly get to the point where you're like, oh, you're finding all of the best weapons, which I think might make sense if you have to go through like a complex dungeon for it or whatever. But I also think that there should be more competent weapons you can find material for and craft.
Yeah, like
Right. Like I think eventually they're probably going to unlock like iron or something. Being able to
that's what I do wonder, because like
yeah.
all these coins that you find, like the only use of them thus far is to make bombs, and I'm like and watches, all the metal that you find, I feel like you should be able to do something with. And I granted, it might be outside the realm of realism that I can like smelt down coins to make like a better spear or whatever, or better arrows or whatever. But also, there's a chainsaw that uses like C batteries, so like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so. I want to talk about the audio in the game, because that's really what's like because I don't think it's necessarily like jump scares like most horror games where like you turn the corner and there's someone there. It's more auditory, and also like most of the cannibals, at least at the very start, they're just stalking you. They're just observing you, and that's just kind of unique behavior that I don't think we see a lot.
The way they interact with with the character models too is very well done.
Yeah.
The stuff where they will come down across a dead body, lift it up, and like look at it, and then look at you, and before casting aside and like coming to try to kill you.
Yeah.
That's something I haven't really seen. They'll utilize like stones and things around you, like large stones in the area. They'll perch on and look at you that way,
and then some will try to just like some will try to drag logs away. I don't know why, and I'm wondering if there'll be more where like they try to take other resources you have, but like.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's in the plans, because like they're starting to make it so you can actually like build properly defensible structures.
Yeah, and then
the
like
releases, and so it might get to a point that you have to like actually build proper defenses.
Yeah, and I'm seeing the multiplayer trailer we're watching, like one of them was like trying to chop down one of the supports of a base, so it's fun. The game doesn't explain a lot, which I guess is like one flavor of survival game that's fair to have. I wish there was a little bit more written. Like if you wanted to, you can read some notation or tutorials. Again, it depends on the flavor of game they want to make. If they want to make very self-guided exploring, that might be the goal.
Yeah, yes, yeah. In addition, I think there should be an option for certain players to have like reticles on screen.
Yeah, and again, I think that might be a design choice, but I would love to see reticle either officially or like a mod for reticle, because
it's not really that bad with the guns, but it's rough with the bow.
Yeah, at least the crossbow you have much more of an iron sight to deal with, but even with the compound bow, like you do not have any kind of sight to tell where it's gonna fly.
I'm almost certain they'll have somewhere you find some kind of a site for it, or they'll put it into the game later. But that it's not there now is slightly disappointing.
Yeah, I do appreciate you can take the attachments off, like you can just remove them. They're not like permanent moves.
They do respawn in a weird way though, so like that's another thing that I think eventually they're probably gonna balance some of the respawns.
Yeah, because
right now they're very clearly making it so that when you play multiplayer, you are technically spawning into like 2 instances of the same world, and it's respawning everything for each person. And
however many people you have, because you can have up to 8 people on a server. So like
so at some point it does seem like that can be really easily juked, and I don't know, like it's a game, you're meant to have fun, but also it just means that you can just like reload constantly and get a bunch of supplies, and it's like okay, I mean maybe that's fine, but it doesn't seem to be.
Maybe that's something they're like, you know what, cool, like it's not necessarily a bug. Depending on like how they view it, right? If they think it's really against their philosophy for the game, then they could patch it out, I'm sure. But like I remember telling you, I went to get because the GPS locators respawned, and I went to get one, and I found a second shotgun. I'm like, okay, next time Virginia rolls up, we can give her a shotgun, and we'll just go get the other shotgun that respawned.
That could have been because of a patch, but
Yeah.
yeah. At least their patches aren't resetting all the worlds or whatever. So
Yeah, it's not like a.
it's not like a Rust or a
What was the other game?
Tarkov does it too.
And I think didn't Valheim. Anyways, there's a
No,
couple
no,
of
Valheim
examples.
did. Valheim was more though, I think, because of like. To be in fairness, Rust and Tarkov do it because they're trying to balance the game. So every once in a while they have a hard reset. So everyone restarts
Yeah,
with
yeah,
no
yeah.
gear. So you're not constantly having the naked man in the wilderness trying to fight people with
Yeah, yeah.
advanced weaponry problem. It makes it very hard for new players to get started when that's the state of the game. So, and this is not at least yet, this isn't a PvP game, so this probably wouldn't ever have that problem. But yeah, no, it's a good game. $30, right? Is that what it still is right now?
It's
on
30.
Steam?
I've definitely gotten my money's worth. Like,
Yeah, and it's going to continue being updated. And like, even if they want to raise the price a little bit later on, I still think, I think in its current state, it's worth it up to like $40. And if they continue making content, they're, you know,
I'm watching the trailer. They are way faster in this trailer than they ever act, I feel. Anyways, that's Sons of the Forest. Great game. We're going to continue playing it. We have 2 videos that will come out for it on our YouTube channel. It's not meant to be a Let's Play. It's more just like random bits, collections of... Not bits, but random sessions we decided were worth recording. So check it out. Especially if you have friends. It's a good co-op experience. Do know early access, so there's a little bit of jank involved. Next game, which I literally started yesterday. No, not literally, but I made decent progress yesterday. It was Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. It's from Ninja Games. I think Neo people. So I didn't dig Neo, the first one at least. I never tried Neo 2. I didn't dig the first Neo because I was like, I don't want to play as this like British guy in Japan. It's a dumb reason. This is like a dark fantasy take on Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which was lore history that I grew up watching in like Chinese TV dramas. So I was already like sold from that perspective. But it seems like from what I've played, I've put about, what did you say, like 4 or 5 hours yesterday? Something like that. So enough to have a solid impression. I think this is their Sekiro, essentially. And Neo 2 were their Dark Souls, Bloodborne equivalent. More Dark Souls than Bloodborne, but this is, a Soulsborne. Very heavy on parrying. So their parrying works a little differently because you have this gauge that can either turn negative for you or turn positive for you, depending if you're deflecting, doing damage, etc. And that gauge is used to do martial arts, spell casting, heavy attacks. So you can choose to do those attacks and what's called put your spirit gauge in the lower half, meaning you put yourself in the red essentially. But you then do damage to build your enemy's gauge. And once you either your gauge or the enemy's goes to a certain limit, you stagger them or break them essentially. They call it spirit disruption, and then you can go in for like a cool looking crit essentially. So I like it a lot right now. My biggest complaint, if I have one currently, is there's so much loot in this game, and that's like that's I think a Soulsborne issue, but I feel like it's way more aggressive in this game than ones I played before. Where, and you made a comment yesterday, like almost every enemy I encountered in one run of a space dropped like weapons or armor for me, and I just went and instantly sold it because it was like just shitty beginning loot that wasn't good, and it was worse than my current equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks cool. I don't know. I played Elden Ring, obviously, but I haven't played any of the other Souls games. The closest other one that I've like put serious time into, it's like big. Other than a couple like little indie titles, top-down stuff, that would be like Souls-likes. Dead Cells is a kind of a roguelite, Souls-light type situation, but.
Are you gonna check out the Castlevania crossover they did?
Maybe
I don't have a big like nostalgia for.
I'm moderately confused about like how those releases actually are acquired, because it seems like you're supposed to pay, but then I look at it and I'm like, wait, but it's like acting like I have it. It's confusing to me, so I have to go back to it. I only played it for a little bit the other day because I bought a new Switch Lite and I decided to try it out again for a little bit because it's been a while since I played it seriously.
I'm looking this up because, like, I have no nostalgia for. Oh, so it's a separate DLC. Okay.
Okay, it is. So I'll probably have to go see if it's something that I want to.
Yeah, I have no strong nostalgia for Castlevania, which is funny because I love Metroidvania games, but Castlevania never appealed to me.
I would actually be really interested in seeing someone release a new, proper Castlevania. They do have some like.
Maybe that's the move, Connor. They
do have some spiritual successors that are.
Yeah, like Bloodstained, I think is the one that comes to mind.
I tried it. I didn't like it enough, so.
Dude, I keep getting like hard walled at like the second boss. I'm like, this shouldn't be the case, like, especially for how like not responsive that game is.
That's what I didn't like. It felt clunky, and like clunky in a way that none of the Castlevania games are. But that said, like they've released a lot of the titles on the Switch in recent years, so like they have the entire like GBA collection. They have some of the old stuff, so they're on there. But yeah, no, I like them, and I actually like them more in that like Metroidvania category. Like I prefer them far more to Metroid, just because I'm into like the RPG, like the fantasy RPG aspect of it with like the swords and sorcery more so than I am like the.
I'm more into the sci-fi stuff.
The shooting stuff.
Yeah.
And at least in that format, like I don't know.
Which man, I've been playing the Metro Prime Remastered. Well, just Metro Prime Remastered. It's not the trilogy yet, but dude, that game still holds up so well. And I was watching like a side by side of like graphically, and they made it look really freaking good for like.
Yeah, and they'd also made it twin stick, right?
Yeah, it's twin stick now, which. Oh man.
Yeah, which I think even when it came out was a bit rough that they didn't do that.
Yeah,
because it was already at the time. I think by the time it came out, you already had
some examples of twin stick.
I'm fairly sure you had Halo.
Oh man, let's see.
Yeah, let's see. And you definitely within like a short time, if it wasn't already out, you had a lot of the.
Okay. Hello, November 2002.
Might have been right around the same time. 2003.
2001. So full year of
after.
Halo.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been in development already when Halo released, most likely, but still, they probably would have been like, "Oh, they did. This was a great choice."
But hold on,
can't do it anymore. We had a lot of the like Call of Duty. You might have had Call of Duty shortly thereafter.
Okay, yeah, because like this is a weird
Agent
deep
Undercover.
cut.
Yeah,
I had this James Bond game, and I played that a lot, and this game was an example of like weird beginnings of twin stick shooting,
right?
As well.
Yeah,
dude, I should replay that.
I think I did play this at some point.
James Bond games slap. I hope the Hitman people do it justice.
Yeah,
because they're doing it, and I'm like, oh man, if they do the openness of Hitman, because the thing with Hitman that I'm like, it's not for me is like I don't care. I need more than just here's a sandbox for you to dick around in. I need more like narrative motivation, and I'm hoping that if they do Bond correctly, that
I don't know if that's going to be what happens because their current models are actually getting pretty popular the way they're doing Hitman,
but that's not Hitman, Connor.
Huh?
That's not James Bond, rather.
I think they could make it pretty like a very similar format. Just the types of missions would be different.
I just want a stronger narrative and motivation.
And having narratives in there, sure, but the way they've set it all up now has.
Again, like I don't mind the sandbox. I think the sandbox is cool. I just haven't played in it because I I don't care why I'm going through this level.
Yeah.
Which I guess
Yeah.
is like
When,
just antithetical to like the nature of like a secret agent hitman is like you're not supposed to be invested in what you're doing. You're just supposed to do it. You know, does that make sense?
sure. Actually, the games do have some story, and the story is actually pretty
Decent.
it's I don't know. But it's very like transgressive. It's a very interesting story if you care to watch it. I'm not as into the story, but I did listen to some of it. I played through Hitman 3, the current trilogy stuff, and then Hitman 1. I was able to buy a package that had both of those missions. I had to pay money to get 2, so I haven't played those, but I pay extra money anyway.
Yeah.
No, I mean, so back to the back to the Wo Long for just a second. It's no, this is probably one that I will pick up eventually. It's it looks interesting enough that I will try it. I might wait until it's on sale, just because the challenge could become one that is hard for me to like put a lot of time into routinely. But
so of the Soulsborne games I've played, this definitely is more RPG based than Sekiro. It's like if you took Sekiro's combat and then put it into a Dark Souls game in terms of like stat progression. But I will say it's definitely easier than Sekiro so far. Other than the first boss, the other bosses I've been able to defeat in like 2 tries tops.
okay.
Well, first boss you saw me struggle for a little bit, but I think that's because I was just like the first boss overall I've heard in discussion is typically one of the harder bosses for compared to most of the rest of the game. Second boss I died like 5 or 6 times, but then after that I think I was able to defeat the next 2 bosses on like second tries. So like I think it's a lot easier than Sekiro, and I would say the pairing mechanic is a bit more forgiving than Sekiro.
Yeah.
I think the biggest struggle you might have is I think there's a lot of combat options that like some you'll either won't use them or you'll get overwhelmed with the choices you have. Because I don't use the wizarding spells very much, if at all.
Most of the problem I have with games like this is that there's a certain hand-eye coordination and like
Twitch like reactions.
Yeah, there's a certain reaction time situation that
I think it's a lot more forgiving.
That I do struggle with a lot, and like to get good at it, like
I
think get good at a lot of games, you have to play them a lot, or just like have be really quick like that. Like this is why I can never play fighting games. I can never play fighting games because of how hard. Like you really have to be, unless you're button mashing. You have to be consistent and know how to react. But no, I liked Elden Ring. I would say I technically haven't finished it. It's just, but I do enjoy my time with it. So I would say I wouldn't say it wasn't worth the money or anything.
Pace wise, it's faster than Elden Ring, but slower than Sekiro in terms of like the flow of combat.
Okay.
Because I think Elden Ring is actually pretty forgiving in terms of the Soulsborns I played, especially because you do have a shield that like. Because in Bloodborne you don't have a shield, so your only way to that combat is roll, and then if you get hit back real quick to gain your health back. Because the gun parry is really hard to pull off, I think, in Bloodborne. Whereas in Elden Ring, I think it's a nicer window, and definitely in this and Sekiro, the parry, it's all about the parry. So, you know, it can be hard, but I think in general these are the easier games. That's a sick steel case. Easier game than the Soulsborns, but this in terms of like the combat, how it looks, it's some really good animating. Like right now I'm running dual swords, and just seeing my character do all these like acrobatic flips that I've seen in movies, like these martial arts movies I've watched since I was a kid, just evokes some sort of like crazy nostalgia / like hype that a game hasn't done in a while, which makes me really hopeful because they're doing, I think next year, I think they said 2024. They're Team Ninja's doing it's called Rise of the Ronin, and I think
Right.
It's their
Right.
Ghost of Tsushima almost is the vibe I got from the trailer, and I think
Yeah.
that was something I heard on the MinMax show this week. Was like it evokes Ghost of Tsushima vibes, and I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
if that can fill my like Onimusha like craving had for the longest time, that'd be great.
Yeah. And I have a wonder. Like, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine with uh, linear story at this point. Like,
Yeah, it's
I don't need to have open world. However, like I will say that Ghost of Tsushima is one of the God, Ghost of Tsushima and
so good.
Spider Man are some of the few games where I actually took time to do the stupid collectible things. Partly just because the gameplay was interesting enough.
See, Spider-Man, I did it because it's so easy to move around that
Yeah.
I had fun swinging through the city, and that's I'm so glad they nailed that Insomniac because like that's what Spider-Man's about.
Yeah.
In the past, when they tried to make Spider-Man movie games, it's always these like boxed in linear levels, and they still have that in those games. Don't get me wrong, but the beauty of Spider-Man is he can move around quickly. He's all about mobility, and actually in Midnight Suns, they kind of communicated that really well too. In his card set, is he moves around the field so easily.
Yeah, which apparently that was a really not a good commercial success.
Critically, it was
So,
a success, but commercially,
yeah,
it underperformed, which
actually doesn't
doesn't
surprise
surprise me. Like
It was
Firaxis games,
very different from anything else that Firaxis does. It was not XCOM.
um,
It was kind of being. I don't think there was a lot of great like marketing and communication that it was like a different kind of strategy game. Like it should have been more billed as kind of a turn based RPG. But because it was Firaxis, everyone was kind of expecting XCOM.
yeah, and
But anyway, yeah.
but also it's like
yeah,
an IP that people associate with like action games or action adventure, Marvel. To turn that into a strategy game, people are like, "What? Why?" Like, or I imagine people were not too fond of that either. But
yeah.
I enjoyed my time with it a lot. I think I've talked about it before. I hope that doesn't discourage Firaxis from going back to it because I think it's one of the best strategy games I played in recent memory. To be honest with you, even though it's like card based, I think they really nailed adapting superheroes to a turn based strategy game. I think they did a fantastic job.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, your game, Chain Echoes.
Chained Echoes. I've only played. I think I played 2 or 3 hours of this. I think around 3 hours.
I think I got through like the intro, like with.
Yeah.
They switched me to like a female character, and that's where I stopped.
Okay, so it's on. Well,
It's barely the
technically,
intro.
You
Yeah.
can you can more or less freely change around who your leading character is, but
Her, I played her.
yeah. So it's an interesting combat system that is reminiscent of Chrono Trigger. I couldn't think of the name for a second. It's reminiscent of Chrono Trigger both in style and world building and just like the overall aesthetic, but it also has like a lot of its own kind of lore that I so far is actually fairly engaging. Like this looks straight up Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
This looks like Chrono Trigger combined with some sort of like say Tales game almost. But it has a combat system that I think does solve some of the issues with some of the older style JRPG turn-based games.
Yeah.
And it's like you start each battle with full health and with full tech points or whatever technique. I don't know what that
Mana.
actually stands for. TP.
Mana. Let's call it mana. That's what it is.
Sure, but you start each battle with a full set. It has a system that is intended to like you were supposed to stay in a certain range of attacks with this gauge.
Yeah, because it's meant to be like you're in a battle rhythm, your peak performance almost, and
yeah, and you
some abilities attacks move that bar around essentially.
yeah. So there's strategy determining which move you want to use when you want to stay in that bar because that I think that like doubles your attack power and
like halves the mana you use or something like that.
It halves the mana you use, and I think it even like it might even have or like dramatically reduce the damage you take.
Yeah, because I think that's a good way to make sure you're still engaged rather than just kind of spamming.
Yeah,
Because it's easy in these like older turn-based games to just like spam attack. But if you're or spam these skills, but if you do that here, you might be tempted to spam a heavy hitting spell, but it will move you out of this overdrive. And I think if you're in the red, you actually start taking more damage. The debuffs last longer, etc. So I think it's a nice way to um, make sure that you are not. What's the word I'm looking for? Just on autopilot to make sure you're still engaged with the systems of the game.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I'll continue playing it. It is made by one guy, which is kind of crazy. And I think it's been very explicitly stated that he was inspired by Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Chrono Trigger in particular, JRPGs in general. But yeah, it's
definitely one I'm gonna be
a-
on the couch and just slowly pick at. I think.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, you have the Series S. It's on Game Pass, and you can play it there because that's one thing. It is on Game Pass. I am playing it on.
I have it on my Switch, so that's the thing.
Oh, okay, I'm playing it on Switch because I picked up the Lite, and I was like, this is the kind of game I would play on a handheld most of the time.
and that's the vibe for like Octopath Traveler 2 too. I think when I eventually pick that up is gonna be on my Switch.
Yes, and I do need to play through that. I need to play through the first one because I haven't finished it. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'll pick it up occasionally. I do think there's probably going to be like some little issues that come up. So far, the combat hasn't felt like super hard, but like they had at least a couple bosses that I thought that there's like kind of like a little puzzle mechanic for completing them. They had like a little octopus thingy that like had tentacles that you would have to attack the tentacles.
I see.
And then they would respawn. And what it was, the only way you knew, and I'm giving away a puzzle maybe, whatever, but like it'll say they see the tentacle that's damaged, and then it respawns, and you finally realize that they're staggered. Like the octopus, the kraken, or the tentacle can't see the ones that have not respawned or whatever. So you have to like in order. You have to take out the back one, and then the middle one, and then the front one, so that it like can't see each other's.
I see.
It's weird, and it didn't make any sense for a long time.
That's cool.
I took a long time to I died because I didn't get it, and I was like, well, I'm out of all my tech points, and I don't have any way to deal enough damage anymore. So
that's cool. I like that. Okay, check that out. Next one is
this is just brief. This is just brief. I'm
brief. Yeah,
I'm playing through part of through Jedi Fallen Order. Where am I at? I've gotten through.
You told me you finished Kashyyyk, right?
Yeah, I finished Kashyyyk, and then I got to the second encounter with the first sister.
Okay.
So I'm on the second time. I think the second time you go back to Zepho.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
or is it Zepho? Or yeah, it is Zepho, right?
Zepho. That sounds right. So, the sequel's coming. They moved it to late April out of March, which is probably great for my wallet because March was going to be a heavy hitter with Resident Evil 4 Remake and this. So that kind of was a nice like little break. I enjoyed it very much so when I originally played it in 2018, 2019. I want to say 3 years ago, 2020. Was this a 2020 game? 2019.
2019.
Okay.
End of 2019.
I very much enjoyed this game. I know it's janky. There's some jank here. And I think that's mostly because Respawn has been mostly a shooter studio. So them jumping into third person, God of War style / Uncharted style mobility platforming, there was going to be jank. What I've seen of Jedi Survivor, the sequel, I think IGN had like a 10-minute video I watched. They look like they're taking some criticism into account. You can dismember stormtroopers now, which was that was not a hill I was gonna die on, but apparently that was a hill a lot of people wanted to die on in the original. Um, I wonder if they're leaning because you have different lightsabers you can use, and they're going to be different benefits and costs to each one. So it looks like it's leaning more into like maybe a Ghost of Tsushima or like a Neo vibe of like different fighting styles in addition to that normal parry. I'm I'm hoping the parry
Which, quite honestly,
mechanic comes back because I enjoyed that.
no, the parry's fine. I think from my perspective, what I'll say is like combat feels very samey after a while.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
that's the different lightsabers is going to add to that. Like,
Combat feels very samey. There's nearly no reason to get collectibles because they're all cosmetic.
oh, absolutely, yeah, that was trash.
The only ones I kind of like picking up occasionally are different outfits, but I don't care about the lightsaber because like it doesn't make a difference other than the color. But some of the outfits do kind of look cool, so whatever, sure. But I'm not going to go out of my way to explore for them if I happen to come across it because I'm trying to find the way to go and I go down a different corridor or whatever. Great. What else? Yeah. The platforming is a little rough sometimes.
Yeah.
I've had a number of times where I'm like, I don't know where the game is thinking I'm going to jump here, and then I fall merely because it wasn't clear at all.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love me Star Wars, so and this is the only Star Wars game media I'm getting. So,
and the thing is, like, as someone who's not a big fan of Star Wars overall, it's still an enjoyable game with like a reasonable narrative that isn't like I don't know. I find some of the other entries like a little bit too campy for me, so it's like it avoids some of those pitfalls too.
I mean, I enjoy this. I think this is a better narrative than Rise of Skywalker, but that's just me. Hot take.
I mean, probably. I mean, the thing is,
I hated Rise of Skywalker. Okay, so that's that. Speaking of Respawn, my plug for Apex Legends, season 16 launch. It's kind of a really big refresh of the legends themselves, which I think the community has wanted, and I like the changes they made. Instead of the original 4 classes, they've revamped it into 5, and they added Team Deathmatch, which has been a long requested mode, and then they added Mixtape, which is what they're calling their rotating non-BR mode. So I am a big fan of Apex. 4 years later, it's still one of my favorite games to ever come out. I think the changes to the classes actually make them matter more. And they did not release a new legend this time, which I think was a good move. They did release a new gun, but I think maybe the slowing down to releasing a brand new legend was needed to just kind of refresh the game in a way that mattered. I don't like Broken Moon, and I don't think there was a map refresh this season. So next season, I'm hoping they just refresh a map, work on some balancing for the classes if they need to, and if they're gonna do World's Edge again as the map refresh, I really hope they get rid of the streamer buildings because that shit's nonsense. I feel like they only keep that in there just because the streamers are there and it's like content, and I'm like, this is not a well designed area of a map. But anyways, Apex Legends, I love it.
Streamer buildings.
We call them streamer buildings because
all
streamers like go to there because it's like chaotic and entertaining and fun.
I see.
For me, if I ever play pubs and people go there, it's just like, okay, I'm gonna die instantly because I'm nowhere near as good as these streamers that land here intentionally.
They play for 5 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I still love this game to death. I have a great time with it. Every time.
Yeah.
I don't need to say much more than that, but I felt mentioning because it is a big refresh of it for the close to the 4th year anniversary. The last game we're gonna talk about, because Connor loves these games.
I like these silly management games that from Paradox. So Victoria 3 I finally plunged into, and it's I think I have most of the critiques that most people do, where like the game is intended to be an economy simulator overall, a resource simulator. I inhaled pound cake. Don't do that.
He's fine.
I mean, I'll live. It doesn't feel good at the moment, but it's an economy simulator more or less. It's based from like 1836, I think, is when it starts, to I think like 1914 or something like that. That you take charge of a nation and like have to balance resources.
I'm already stressed out.
Yeah, it's a lot, and honestly, like,
Ooh, the Manchus. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it actually has like the entire world simulated, and it has like complex like political and economic situations simulated, and it's like a lot of these games from Paradox. It's, you know, Crusader Kings 3 is a medieval dynasty and kingdom simulator. This is the Victorian era simulator.
Equivalent. Okay.
And like it is the colonial period, so like yes, you can become like a major colonial power, but you can also, I think you can get, you can actually win by more or less diplomatic means, not just conquering.
So there is an end state to it.
Yes, there are. I mean, the thing is with these games, like technically, there's no like end state. You're going on like goals that the game has for like whatever nation you are, and you kind of make your own thing. Like it could be like forming Germany out of the German lands. It could be forming a particular nation in India or whatever.
Okay.
Etc. It can be becoming independent and then uniting India, whatever. Which would be very hard in that game. But no, it's I find a lot of fun. That a lot of people who have been longtime fans of the series are annoyed by some of the changes they did to things like combat and military stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see troops move across the field anymore, which was a common feature. Is a common feature of pretty much every other Paradox game.
I see.
And people don't like it, but I think that it has its logics, and I think as they continue updating the game and bringing out new DLC and stuff like that, because what Paradox usually does is they'll bring out DLC, and the DLC will add like significant new features to the game, but when they bring out the DLC, they'll also improve certain aspects of the base game. So over time, all Paradox games. It's only $14 right now. Jesus.
Dude, doing it.
I'm
doing it.
It's only.
You're gonna do it with me, Connor. Okay. It's only.
It's
not looping. Shit. Okay.
Oh, it's not looping.
We're fine.
We're fine. One thing I would say is I'm hoping in some of the updates, because one thing that they have in the game, and I think it's so that you can like have quote unquote fresh land, which is to actually colonize.
The hell does that even mean?
Well, because one of the features is colonization in the game.
I know.
They have territories that you cannot play in the beginning of the game.
I see. Okay.
So, and I want them to change that. There are mods, and I think modders have already put this in there. This game's been out for a while. I just took a while to pick it up because it was getting a lot of reports of being like really jank on release, and is it worth $50, etc. I don't know. It's probably not worth $50 if you don't like these complex management sims. But like, it is probably, it's complicated the way Civ 6 is, really. Like it's probably not much more complicated. It's
but I think Civ does a better job of aesthetically communicating the information.
Perhaps it is
like I'm looking at this, I'm like, this looks like a bunch of numbers that, again, to each their own. I'm not as, and that this is part why I hate the loot in Neo, is like I don't want to sit down and do the math for like this. I would be more down to sit down and do the math, but for Neo, like I don't want to sit down and do the math for like why this piece of armor is better than this piece of armor. I mean, I would be interested in watching someone play this. I don't know if I could sit down and play it myself. is
Yeah.
I think the where I'm
Yeah,
gonna
and I
land.
can't even say if I'm good at the game or not kind of situation. It's like I'm not very good at Crusader Kings 3. I still don't understand the systems very well, but I enjoy it a lot. So,
I'm not. I would say I'm not good at freaking, you know, Civ, but I enjoy the hell of it. Like I always play just. Always end up just playing a domination victory,
yeah,
but I enjoy doing the domination victory.
yeah.
That's all
So,
that fucking matters.
yeah, modders have made it so those areas are playable though. But I think eventually they ought to add in that they're an option to begin with, because the areas that aren't playable are like parts of Central Africa and several of the native nations at the start of the game in the Americas, and it's just like if they could add mods where they're playable, you could already do it kind of, because there is a segment that is called Indian Territory
Lovely.
that is it's probably Cherokee most likely. That's technically a satellite state of the United States at the start of the game, but you can play as them and you can become independent and take, chart your own path. It's very hard because you are very weak, but you can do that. But you can't play as any of the other nations that are like not established powers. Essentially, is how they do it. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting game. I enjoy these games when they have like that much of the world. One thing Crusader Kings 3 I think is slightly frustrating is it's only like Europe and a portion of Asia and North Africa. So cool.
All right. Final thoughts. I just want to mention Resident Evil 4 demo. It came out earlier this week. I played it. Very quick impressions, I think, for me to end the episode at least, and then Connor can have some final thoughts as well. I am so juiced for this remake. I think the added mobility to Leon is nice. I think that they made some smart decisions in terms of, modernizing the game while still having the feel of the original game still intact. And I played a little bit of the demo. I played the demo in front of you, Connor, where I think it does a good job of modernizing it by making Leon move faster. Not that stuck semi-tank controls that he has, but in turn, because of that, they made the Ganado much more mobile, aggressive, to still maintain that tension. Because I felt like the beginning village portion, which is what the demo covers, was a lot more chaotic than the original ever was, but not in a bad way. I think it still maintained that level of tension well, and just made it so that you still feel that danger, even though you feel way more capable of doing stuff.
Yeah, I can see that. I haven't played it, so
Yeah.
I can't comment.
I know, but I just wanted to
can't
mention
comment
like
completely on the way it feels,
it's coming out soon, and we're I think our plan is Connor's gonna play through it as his series,
I think so.
and I'm gonna play it just as my own, and then just comment on top of Connor.
I am.
Siri interrupted us. Give us a moment.
Okay, I don't know. No, because I'm into playing it, but I'm not like, I don't need to blitz through it or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those that I can wait week to week to play a little bit, and it'll be interesting. And I think because you're going to be playing it earlier, I will be able to
lean on me.
Right, you'll be there, and you'll be able to say like, "Hey, maybe do that."
Yeah.
So Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I played the original, but I never actually finished it. I got all the way to the island area, and
You never finished the original?
no, I was young enough and didn't go back to it later, and I was freaked out at the island level.
The island levels what freaked you out?
Yeah.
Oh wait, the regenerators?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trip. Yeah, I'm excited. The demo dropped and I was like I need to try it right away. It feels great. It looks gorgeous. Like it's so pretty. The demo. I'm hoping it runs well. I if the tension and all that maintains and they don't do anything to like butcher the segments or the story because I know they're reworking the story because in one of the latest trailers, spoilers, Luis is shown to be present in a segment and where in the original game he was already dead at that point. So I wonder how they're reworking some things. Are they retconning some things in terms of like that whereas even one remake, RE2 remake, RE3, RE4, like are they just remaking it and then how is this going to tie into Seven and Village and are they just going to continue, are they going to remake 5 as well, it makes me think, are they remaking 5 and 6 and then 7 and 8 are just part of this new remake retcon situation? I don't know, that would be, I'm interested to see what their
5 and 6
plans
had
are.
5 and 6 had enough of a. I don't think they failed, but like 6 kind of did. 6 was a critical failure for the most part. I think it might have sold okay.
It's sold
But
decent. I'm
5
gonna look it up actually.
was kind of a similar situation, but I think 5 was mostly just because everyone was wanting a similar experience as 4, and they did something that was a similar control scheme, but otherwise fairly different.
Yeah,
because of the co-op and
it emphasized co-op a lot more, which thematically worked with like what the story they were going for.
But they changed the entire like inventory system, which I think like everyone hated for years.
Dude, I don't even remember the inventory system. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh, it was just a very simple, like grid. I think it was a lot like the RE2 remake type thing, where it's just like a grid you select.
Attaché all the way.
But you can't pause because it was co-op.
Yeah, and then 6 was not good. I only played through. I think I own it. I think I own it on Steam, which maybe I'll revisit that. I only played through Leon's portion because that's the one that made the most sense or like was the most return to form of the series. Yeah, critically 69% or roughly in like the high 60s, low 70s. Sales by October, it's 5.2 million worldwide, 7.7 lifetime. Yeah, so I think it sold well, but direction wise, everyone's like, this is not where we wanted Resident Evil to go. And then 7 was that like return to form, and 8 went into like a RE4 vibe, which I think RE4 is the vibe I want Resident Evil to be on for the remainder. I think that's a good balance at this point because like RE1, RE2, it makes sense, and I can't believe I'm discussing Resident Evil lore as if it's serious, but it made sense to be a survival horror situation because you're stuck in this mansion you don't know. It makes sense that you're going to be more surviving than shooting through things. 2, same thing. This city is falling apart. By like 4, the world has experienced this, and you're playing as these essentially superhumans that should be kitted out at this point. In 1, 2, and 3, they're just regular police officers. Whereas at 4 onwards, they're all like special forces, etc., etc. It makes more sense to lean more into a more capable person, where it's like survival action instead. But that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah.
But I'm juiced. It's just under 2 weeks away now, so I'll be playing through it. and we'll have our impressions and series on it when it comes out.
Yeah.
Looking forward, we're still continuing our Outer Worlds playthrough, um, and then we have some Sons of the Forest videos going up soonish from the time of this recording, and then I can see us. We talked briefly planning wise, no promises, but a Baldur's Gate campaign is in the discussions. A Baldur's Gate 3
Yeah,
campaign.
I think that would be one on full release. I don't necessarily want to play the early access. If it's only a portion of the game. I want to.
It's only the first act, yeah. But
Yeah.
I think full release. That's something that we have discussed thoroughly doing. Full campaign, which will be probably the longest series we do, depending on how thorough we want to be.
Yeah, at least to date.
To date, yeah.
And
we don't
for a long time, just because it is such a long game. Like,
yeah.
There's a very good chance that I will try to do some kind of thing for Starfield when it comes out, because that'd be topical and content.
And then Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's one I can wait to do a recording of.
Yeah.
At least consistent, like, recordings where, like, I stop playing.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be probably more like Sons of the Forest, where, like, between videos, it'd be more like check-ins.
Yeah.
But that's our episode. Check us out on YouTube at No Gaming Scientist. We have a Patreon, but not much happening. If you do want to support us, we want to build Connor a gaming PC. So you want to send our money our way to fund that, our German friends mostly. You can do that.
Do we have the Patreon properly set up right now?
Maybe, but also I will just set up a No Gaming Scientist PayPal, and you can just send it that way, and we will build Connor a gaming PC. Maybe we'll record us doing it. Who knows? Probably not, but you never know. But yeah, we want to build Connor a gaming PC, and we need funding. So send money our way. Bye.